Hi, I'm Courtney McQuade with Markets Group here at our 12th Private Equity Forum in New York City. With me is Nick Stewart, partner of the Investment Fund Group at Duane Morris. Nick, great to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you just came off of moderating a panel called Middle Market Outlook. Can you tell me what some of the key highlights were?
Sure. I think the highlights ultimately is this year looks a lot, unfortunately, like last year, sort of a Groundhog's Day effect here. But there are still opportunities to be had out there. And so ultimately, what people need to look towards as they're trying to make deals is getting creative in the structuring, yes, but particularly on the buy side, on the investment side, being disciplined in your approach and not going too far beyond what it is that has made you successful so far, what has provided the differentiation that you have in the marketplace, and sort of what defines your core value.
So are you making any predictions?
That's a good question. So I think ultimately, from a macroeconomic perspective, we will see things change. I believe this confidently. Should there be a promised reduction in interest rates? Mm-hmm. We heard from Chairman Powell that that's not necessarily going to be the case in the short term, and we heard that this week, so there's sort of a news item there. Mm-hmm. But to the extent that we have some movement, or at least a signaling to the market that there's going to be movement, I think we'll see movement on the deal front as well. All of the indications and studies reveal that not only are sellers sort of behind a floodgate waiting to get into the market, but that also buyers have a lot of capital, $1 trillion domestically, $2.5 trillion globally to spend. And if they don't spend it, the question becomes, what do they do with it? Do they give it back to their LPs? And if they do, it's going to be really challenging to try to fundraise in the future. So you have these pressures on both sides that ultimately maybe there's going to be some movement as soon as some of those macro factors align.
Interesting. Well, I guess we will see, and we'll check in with you later about that.
That'll be wonderful. Yeah, I think the one other thing to keep in mind too from a sell side perspective is we have a huge wealth transfer that's going to go on. And so we're talking in the trillions of dollars over the course of the next 2 decades. And only 40% of private businesses have a succession plan in place. And so that leads to a real opportunity for buyers, for investors, to build long-term, patient, strategic relationships with their counterparties or future counterparties, and to understand what they need to get comfortable with that succession planning, to be a part of the solution when it comes to those factors ultimately.
That's really interesting. Next Gen has definitely been a hot topic I've been hearing about in all the different spaces, even private wealth, so it makes sense to hear about it here in the private equity space too.
Right. Well, I think when we reach sort of a new normal in the marketplace as we're maybe approaching, that level of just certainty and added confidence that these are the rules of the game going forward will provide the next generation with the opportunities to kind of take the reins and write a next chapter.
I love that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nick, so much for joining, and we're reporting live from the sidelines of our Private Equity Forum.